You all join me for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, it's all you. Okay, I'm going to ask that we begin tonight, prior to taking the roll and approving the agenda. I'm going to ask that we take a moment of silence. We recently lost Cynthia Christensen, who passed away after a very heroic and courageous battle with cancer. She was the chair and longtime member of the Historic District Commission and also an active and very passionate volunteer with the Celine Historic Society. She will be greatly missed, and we want to especially keep her family, friends, and loved ones in our thoughts and prayers. So if you'd please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. So present this evening are myself, Mayor Marl, Council Members Burgoyne, Gearbaugh, Cybo Koenig, Rhodes, Roth, and Tahar. From City staff, we have City Manager Campbell, Clerk Royal, City Superintendent Rubel, City Treasurer Bennett, and DPW Director Fordyce, and Police Chief Larry Rennick. For the rest of you, for those of you who are also present this evening, we would encourage you to sign up in the back. At this time, I would seek a motion to approve the agenda as amended. You should have in front of you, and this will be added to the consent agenda, a proclamation for National Police Week 2014. It will be consent agenda item C-14-90, and it will be a simple motion to acknowledge receipt and approve the mayor's proclamation designating this upcoming week as National Police Week 2014.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd also like to request that C-13-184E, that's an echo, be moved to the regular agenda for discussion.
Okay, so that will be following community event policy. And you said E, correct, Mr. Rhodes?
Correct.
Okay. I also want to note, and this was a communication error, and I'll take responsibility for it. New business item 14-84, the community event policy. As you recall, we talked about that at some length at a work meeting about a month ago, and the city clerk, Ms. Royal, has worked pretty hard to draft a policy. If you all are not comfortable approving that tonight and would simply like to discuss it, and make amendments or changes, I'm happy to entertain those as a discussion item, and we'll make sure that it comes back at our subsequent meeting in May for action and hopefully approval. Okay?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would like to have into the regular agenda C-13-184, all of it, and C-13-89.
Okay. So now all of the 5 motions, is that right? Yeah. 5 motions in C-13-84 will be added to the agenda following new business item 14-84. And then, Mr. Burgoyne, you said C-13-89?
Yes.
Okay. And so that will be added. We'll make that the last business under the new business section of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to add to this discussion item Centennial.
Okay, that'll be added following the correspondence from American Tower Corporation. We're on a roll here tonight, folks. Anybody else got a change to the agenda this evening?
We have messed up the agenda.
All right, if not, I would seek a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Cybo Koenig. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. There are no absences this evening, so we will dispense with that. And we have two presentations this evening. The first is by some guests from St. Joe Hospital, Celine. It's an update from Michael Miller, the Chief Missions Officer, and Robin Damschroyer, the Chief Operating Officer. And if you recall, at a previous meeting, I reported that Treasurer Bennett and I met with some representatives from St. Joe Hospital about 2 months ago to express some concerns and raise some issues, and we thought it was appropriate to have them here to discuss and address any questions that council members may have, and just sort of provide for the public record what their plans are for the future. So I'd invite our two guests forward, and thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Morrill and council members. It's an honor, and we're humbled to be here tonight with you to represent St. Joseph Mercy Hospital. My name is Michael Miller. I'm the Chief Mission Officer for the organization. And in our time this evening, we'd like to share with you a little bit of insight into our decision-making processes. And then I'll invite our Chief Operating Officer, Robin Damschroyer, to share a bit of our lived experience and a bit of our future plans and hopes for our presence here in the community. So as Chief Mission Officer of the organization, it's part of my role to ensure that the things that we do, the decisions that we make, align with our mission, our values, and our organizational identity. And just a word about our organizational identity. We are certainly a healthcare organization, which in today's world means that we're a healthcare business. And the healthcare industry, you know, is a very changing and turbulent kind of industry these days. At the same time, just as much as we're a business, we're also a faith-based ministry. And it's my job to help navigate between those two worlds every day. Lots of opportunity to work through questions and issues through the lens of a business and a ministry. So, as an organization, when we come across difficult, challenging decisions, we do many things that any other business would do. We would employ our financial leaders to do a financial analysis. We'd look through any marketing analyses that we might do, for example. But we also have an additional process which helps us look at our work through our lens as a ministry, and that's what we call a mission discernment process. And through that process, it's on the same level as a financial or a marketing analysis, in which we ensure that the decision, the proposed initiative in front of us, is aligned with our mission and our values and our organizational identity. The decision that we had in front of us about the future of our facility here in the Celine community was a very difficult one. So we knew from the very beginning that along with the regular kind of work that we would do to gather information to make our decision, we'd want to ensure that we did a mission alignment and discernment with that as well. I just want to give you a little bit of insight into that process. First, when we think about our community and our mission, we are called to be an organization that has a transformative and healing presence in our communities. In other words, we want to see our communities have improved health outcomes at the end of the day, and we want to be a part of that transformation in our communities. One of the most interesting elements that came out of our mission discernment around the future of the facility here in Celine were two things. One was the services that we are providing in our facility aligning with the needs of the community. That was very important for us. The other one along with that was looking at the health of the community and assessing the health needs, and the services that we were providing were not exactly adding up to improved health outcomes in the community, which really led us to wonder, how can we be a part of that? How can we step back, reconsider the needs of the community, how we show up and provide services in the community to lead to better health outcomes? I also want to acknowledge today that in the process of making this decision and implementing it and the transitions that have occurred in our facility here in the community, we also failed to make some key connections, primarily here with the city leadership, including you, the Office of the Mayor. And I do want to go on record apologizing for that oversight. And I also want to thank the mayor and the city treasurer for the opportunity to sit down specifically with them to talk through our decision-making processes. And we're honored to be here with you tonight to do some more of that. And we also want to listen and do whatever we can to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So at this time, I'll invite Robin Damschroeder, our Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you. And again, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. As Michael shared, it was a very difficult decision, and a decision made about what can we do, not so much focused on facility, but on service and the health needs of the community. And in making that decision as we look forward, we not only knew that we might need to be in a new place or location with the types of services or deliver in a new way or connect with other community organizations to make that change, given healthcare. And we know that we were going to affect our employees. So you may have read in the paper that we impacted about 60 of our employees in their current positions. But I'm pleased to report to you 45 of those individuals have been placed in other St. Joseph Mercy Health System positions, whether it be their home department or a new position. We continue to help the remaining 15 individuals look for open positions within St. Joseph Mercy. As we look forward, as we stand today, the urgent care is open. We ceased emergency level services at the Russell Street site on April 14th at 9 o'clock. We opened at 8 a.m. Urgent care. We overnight replaced the signage. You now enter the main entrance on Russell Street. And I'm pleased to report, we saw an average of 21 patients a day on a 24/7 period. And over the last 3 days, we averaged 21, but we saw as high as 24 and as low as 17. The diagnosis that we continue to see still range in the same that we saw before. And we do have chest pain arriving at the facility, but with the help of Huron Valley Ambulance, those folks are transported to St. Joseph Mercy in Ypsilanti. So the good news is I think we have the level of service needed for the community. We still have patients arriving in the same numbers. And the positive impact and benefit for the community is those of you who pay copays and deductibles. There's a large difference on the copay and deductible for an emergency room visit versus an urgent care. So that should be a positive side effect. And part of the large discussion we're having as we go through healthcare reform is about how we can lower the cost of care. And so that change from 24/7 to being in urgent care 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. allows us to do that for you. We also, as we look at the building, we're not vacating or selling the building at this time. We do expect that the evangelical home will be renting more space with us. We'll probably have other tenants in the building. It is our plan in the future, and we are looking at sites out on Michigan Ave to relocate the urgent care. A lot of the community feedback we received in the consumer survey, along with our research around urgent cares and the use of retail urgent cares, have demonstrated that maybe we need to be closer to your shopping district. Much like where you have Probility and the GNC Health and the like, there's a lot of health and fitness out on Michigan Ave that we think we should be connected to. So we'll be looking at that site, and we'll let the community know when we've selected one. We are pleased to be partnering with Celine Rec and Ed. We've had a community room and center at St. Joseph Mercy Celine. In some respects, we've utilized it for our own training. We have hosted many education sessions, but we'd like to see it much more widely used. And Celine Rec and Ed has a great record of offering the community a wide range of fitness and health opportunities, and we hope to lend our subject matter experts in hypertension, diabetes, et cetera, weight loss to their offerings and offer our facility for their use. In addition, we are pleased to be a part of the Substance Abuse Task Force that you've joined, and we've let the leadership of that task force know that we have funds that we've raised in the community that are available once initiatives are decided that could be used, as well as continuing to promote our Drugs 101 education forum that we have, and again, offering that free once the committee decides how they'd like to further education around the substance abuse. So I'm going to stop there so we can have questions for you that may have arisen from the materials we either provided to the mayor or just general questions you have.
Start at that end. Mr. Burgoyne.
I have two questions. The first is, will you still have lab services, x-rays, echocardiograms, things of that nature? Do you still have equipment and facilities that can be used here between 8 and 8?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have expanded more than the urgent care. You can continue to receive your general lab phlebotomy draws, so if somebody gets a draw weekly, daily, that is still open, and they actually open at 7. And we're still providing that service to the evangelical home. And we also have general x-ray. We will, for a period of time, our CT is open on a limited basis for 3 half-days a week. The CT will be relocated to St. Joseph Mercy Ann Arbor's ED, but we need to keep it running, to keep it in shape, so we have a limited schedule here for availability the next 4 to 6 months likely.
Another question is, in your decision-making process, I saw that you used population figures that showed for the next 20 years a really flat population around here and not really any growth in this ex-urban area, where that's not realistic, I don't think. I think that even though there was a housing slowdown in 2008, and even though the city itself has not exploded in growth, and I think the projections that you had are too flat. And it could be, and I do know that you had declining number of beds used and so forth. And I'm not saying that those necessarily would come back, but I do think there will be more of a population density in this area, and the school district will continue to grow, not just on the Ypsi side, but around this area. So I don't think those projections did you as much use. I think they were too flat. And just a comment.
Go right.
Yeah, so fair enough. Thank you for that criticism.
No,
Well,
it's not a criticism.
well, maybe comment.
You got data from somewhere.
Critical feedback, maybe. But what I would say is one of the things that we'd like to leave you with, one of the main ideas, is that St. Joseph Mercy is not leaving the community. And should you see your community changing in that respect, we want to make sure that we always have services that align with the needs of the community. So should those new needs arise, bring them to our attention, and we're happy to do what we can to be present and address those needs. Thank you.
I think the one thing I would add as we look at that, Celine has actually grown over the last 20 years. I've been coming here since I've been a girl because my mother is from here. But in the same time that it's grown, we've also shrunk in that time. And largely that's particularly developed out of our commuting habit to work. And as people have decided to drive farther and longer for jobs and where they seek doctors and get appointments, that was a real learning for us in our consumer research study that was done. And so I don't think it's a criticism of anyone. Communities change, and we need to be attuned to that. So I think we fully take hold that if something changes, we're going to be here to listen and try to respond to that.
One more, Mr.
I have
Burgoyne.
a third question, actually. I've noticed over time at St. Joe's and Celine that some procedures, for example, proper interpretation of certain x-rays and so forth, that you have specialists that are able to do that at your main location. And that has taken a period of time. Sometimes it takes a day and you have to come back or whatever, or sometimes you refer it over to your specialty areas. But it seems as though now in this type of new digital age, there are doctors in the bush in Africa that can get interpretations very quickly. And it seems as though that and this might be a criticism actually, that it seems as though in Celine itself, that it took longer than you might have thought for the process to happen. And I'm wondering if, or how digitized you're becoming, and how able you might be to reach somebody on call at your main location and do the kind of a Skype thing where everybody sees each other and they're looking at it over there and they're informing the people over here. Are you, how are you coming with technology?
So there's like two things I would take there. For things like radiology, it's completely digitized. So I do take note that if it seems like
Still
it's
takes a
taking
while.
longer, we should take a look at that, because the radiologists, for the most part, particularly the subspecialists, are located in Ann Arbor, and that's all digital. It all goes in the same queue from all of our sites, and it's prioritized according to status, so ED status, inpatient status, that kind of thing. Outpatient. So outpatient takes longer than those that require immediate status. So there might be a few people in front of you. As it relates to what I think you
So even
referred
if you
to,
were an IPSI and you were an outpatient,
Patient,
you
it
might
would
have to
take-
come back the next day?
you might, yes.
It's not just because we're here?
No,
Okay.
it's not just because you're here.
Okay.
So ED patients and inpatients have priority.
Okay.
The other thing I would tell you, telemedicine is going to be coming our way in a lot of forms, and the state of Michigan has lagged behind in sort of reimbursement, but we're beginning to catch up. So I think the opportunity to have specialists in your doctor's office when you go to a primary care physician is going to be there someday. And so we are piloting a few different things to try that out for specialists in the ED, for pediatrics, for example, and a variety of methods. So more to come in that area. Stay tuned. I know you're reading a lot about it in the papers.
Thank you, Mr. Burgoyne. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just a couple questions. You had mentioned about patient visits or whatever. You just had 21 or so. What's your hope to eventually reach as a goal for the urgent care on a daily basis?
So our goal for the urgent care is probably to increase that about 20%, 25%. We actually think we lost in the marketplace with the development of retail urgent cares, and almost around every urgent care and ED that we have, whether you're in Livingston County, whether you're in Ypsilanti or you're in Canton, all of our facilities have felt the effect of the lower, more usual, normal items that you'd come for that doesn't need an emergency room level visit have left our emergency rooms and some of our urgent cares. So we have a real desire to do something that's much more cost competitive for the community, so that they can seek that care from a familiar face and a trusted healthcare partner, and that would be St. Joseph Mercy.
And so with growth, the competition potentially could be the university's urgent care, that they may move into this area too. So.
That could be.
Okay. The other question I was having regarding visits, but the other thing, how long will the services be operating in the, would be your current location outside of the X-ray, the lab services and so forth? Do you project those to be out 2 to 3 years, 5 years, or will those be moving
So we
shortly?
project hopefully to move the lab, radiology, and the urgent care hopefully within the next 12 months. But again, it's all on finding a site out of Michigan Ave and relocating it.
So essentially, all services will move from the Russell
All
Street.
those clinical services, yeah, would
But you
move
will
to the new
keep it
site.
in Celine?
It will be in Celine. So we're actively looking, I don't want to say
losing it.
too much because, we're working with a broker and we're looking at available space out on Michigan Ave.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Roth.
I feel sorry for Michael in that, in the nature of your job, you have to justify the financial decisions that your employer has made. It purely looks to me that this was a financial decision that you made to move from Celine. Celine, I think that overall you gave us a sense of not being a secure community as we have been for many, many years. The Celine community gathered together and had a community hospital, general hospital, for many, many years. We end up selling that to you folks. The you folks end up wanting to make money off of us. And with the nature and competitiveness of healthcare, along with its specializations and highly trained people within this area, both at the U and at your facility, you people were taken away from the general hospital, going to the more specific cares. So this is a process. I can understand that. But really, when you made that decision to move away from here without having discussion with the community, to me, that purely was a financial decision that was made. I do accept your apologies, but I think that you really lessened the overall value of our city that we have. I do appreciate you wish to keep on with it because you kind of have a commitment to your investment and you still want the clientele from the city to come and utilize your services so you can maintain the business aspect of making money. I think you have a responsibility somehow to lessen the cost of health care, because I think overall nationally, the cost of health care is spiral. They've been using this empathy thing to justify their wages and cost for insurances and that type of stuff. This is a sick problem that our country has, and you're a part of it, and you justify your business by making money. So I really, Michael, I feel that you're trying to balance the mission aspect of St. Joe Hospital, which was organized under different premises, than making money. So I think you hurt us, but I can understand where we're going. I can understand the history, but I think some dialogue was very, very important. And I think you really degraded our community. And you're trying to come back and say, we want a storefront so we can utilize your business.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yeah, I have some of the same kind of thoughts that Councilmember Roth just initiated, and I don't know what role the two of you played in the decision-making process, but you're the ones who are here, so you're going to have to listen to it. So I apologize in advance for that, but I'd like to see the Sisters of Mercy back. I don't detect that they have very much influence within St. Joe's Hospital anymore. As Mr. Miller said, it's turned into a business which happens to provide medical services for people, and a business which needs to make money to survive. Over the years, there's been a lot of folks here in the Celine area who have given a lot of funds to build and improve that facility, and who had children born there, grew up, treated. It's not just a building, it's part of our community, and it's one of the reasons why people came to Celine. We had an outstanding hospital, we have an outstanding school system, we still have a decent community, good quality of life, and people will continue to come here when they can, but the decision to close that pulled one of those legs off the stool, and we're wobbling now. And we didn't need to do that, I don't believe. I saw the PowerPoint and showed the projection, the decrease in usage of the facility, and it seems like that decline started about the same time that all the improvements to St. Joe's main hospital started up. And it leaves me with kind of a sour taste in my mouth, because I think there's a possibility, whether it was a conscious decision made or not, to let this facility dwindle away because of a big investment up in Ann Arbor, Saline area. And you needed more doctors up there, you needed more patients up there, you needed more use of the facilities up there in order to support that great big facility. Whereas out in Chelsea, I think it's far enough away that you're now putting money into that facility because it's far enough away that people will go there instead of coming to Ann Arbor. And as far as some perceived benefit by having a reduced copay by going to urgent care instead of emergency, if we need an emergency, we still got to go to the emergency room. And now it's 20 minutes away. And maybe we have to pay an ambulance to take us there as opposed to just going to our little facility here. So I'm really, really disappointed that that decision was made. And I don't have any confidence that St. Joe's is going to stay around in any kind of capacity. I just don't. I was on the Special Events Committee of the Development Council from about mid-75 to mid-85, back when we had the Radiothon and the circus, and got to chair the circus. And, you know, so I have an affinity for St. Joe's, but I don't like what has happened here in Celine. And I don't know if there's any way to turn it around. Was any kind of marketing done? Was the usage declined to try to bring more people to the hospital? I had some minor surgery that could have been done here. The doctor that I was assigned to happened to work out of the Chelsea Hospital mostly, and I asked him specifically to do it here in Celine because I could see that Celine was dwindling away. And he said no, he didn't want to do that because he didn't have any confidence in the support that he would get here in Celine. So I ended up out in Chelsea. So I don't know. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you say, but I myself and a whole bunch of other people are not very happy with St. Joe's.
Thank you for sharing your experience with the organization in the past, and thank you for your comments today, along with yourself, Councilman Roth. Well, I would like to respond to one question that I heard and make a clarification. I heard one question about was any marketing done, was anything done try to increase the use of the facilities here? And I can say absolutely yes. All opportunities that we had in front of us were exhausted. We did everything that we absolutely could, first of all. And then the clarification that I'd like to make is we're not a ministry that turned into a business. We are, the point that I was trying to make earlier is that we are 100% a business and at the same time 100% a ministry. And that calls us for confusing, difficult, mysterious ways to navigate through that. And it's a challenge for us. I will tell you right now, we're not a perfect organization, and we're also not operating in a perfect industry. Councilman Roth mentioned a lot of problems that we're dealing with in the whole industry of healthcare today. And we're trying to navigate through all of that, along with you, along with all the communities that we serve. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here with you and hear from you.
Thank you for your gracious response.
I would just also add, as you addressed, you mentioned the investment we made in Ypsilanti versus the investment here. We actually invested a lot here because we thought we could turn it around. And we really wanted to. It takes partnership. Our physicians, ourselves, our community partners, be they nursing homes, be they home care, hospice, are all facing pressures in the way to change the way we do business. And in an area where we were paid for fee for service, it was easy to have many more multiple sites. And that really became under pressure for our physicians first. So again, physicians have chosen different sites to go to. We go and support with them because obviously they do the orders. But collectively, the physicians who were here and ourselves wanted to be here. But again, as you mentioned, the volumes were dwindling. So we understand your remorse. We have sadness about this as well too, as long as we've been here.
Additional comments or questions? Ms. Tahar?
Yes, thank you. I think it may be clearer to you now than it was before you came tonight how deeply in mourning this community is about the loss of the hospital. But I would also say I and people like me are probably one of the reasons this has happened, because when I moved into Celine in 1995, I already had my own personal health care system was established, and it wasn't here. And I worked in Ann Arbor, so I was never a person who used the hospital. And I think, you know, that you talked about the changing ways that people seek out and find health care and where they go. And that speaks to me because I think I'm an example of that. But I do also share the sadness about the closing of the hospital. And I hope as you look up for ways to maintain what I hope will be a robust, maybe more robust than it's been in the most recent year or two, to maintain a robust presence in the community, that you will be looking at ways, new ways to promote the health of the community that you talked about before. I really hope that you won't go away, but that you'll find new ways to do your mission in Celine.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Questions? Well, let me just conclude then. Michael and Robin, I appreciate you being here tonight. And I appreciate that when the two of us, or when the two of you met with your CEO, Rob Castellou, and our city treasurer, that you graciously volunteered to come and address some questions and concerns that my colleagues on city council had. I'm not going to beat this dog to death, and I don't mean to regurgitate many of the things we talked about several months ago, but I share the sentiments that have been expressed from the dais this evening regarding the disappointment that your organization has decided to transition the Saline community's 24-hour emergency room to a 12-hour urgent care facility. I do believe that the community benefits greatly from 24-hour emergency room care. But as I said when we met a couple months ago, I'm not going to chastise, I'm not going to belittle you for making business and strategic decisions. I know that that's part of your responsibility, and as much as I may disagree, I respect that. I also want to echo comments that were made by Mr. Burgoyne, because it's my goal as mayor, and I think it's the goal of most people on council here, if not everyone on council, to prove these prognosticators wrong, that this area is going to grow and is going to flourish in the years to come, and therefore is going to need robust, adequate healthcare services. I should also note, because we talked about this when we met several months ago, that part of my disappointment is predicated on the notion that the services and the quality of care that my citizens received at St. Joe Celine was exceptional. It was great. Doctors and nurses and support staff and volunteers are terrific. That's what makes it all the more tragic. I do appreciate you verbalizing tonight that in retrospect, you wish you would have proactively communicated with my office and with City of Celine, and I do appreciate that. But I also want you to know that it's a two-way street, and if I can ever be of assistance, if staff can ever be of assistance, please reach out to us, email, call, stop by. We remain committed to helping you maintain a strong presence in this community for years to come. And I do also want to thank you for your support on the Substance Abuse Task Force. It looks like you're going to, hopefully in the near future, be sending a little bit of money our way, and you've sent some people to our meetings that have provided some great perspectives and insights, and that's very much appreciated.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And Mayor Morrow, I just want to say thank you for recognizing our physicians, our nurses, and our staff. They truly made it an exceptional experience. Some of them will be coming with us to the urgent care. By far, they were a leader in our patient care arena, so
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Burgoyne?
Just a comment on the Drugs 101 program that you have had for many years. A few years ago, I saw that. It's very good. If anybody has a student in the middle grades, now's the time for the parent to attend that. You learn good tips from going to something like that, and it's good that you're so proactive and that you have this mission beyond business. This is truly, a very positive mission that you have.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, thank you very much. Appreciate your time this
Thank
evening.
you.
Have a good rest of your evening.
Take care.
Thank you. Okay, up next we have Tony Caparisi, who's going to, from Swisher Commercial, who's going to give us an update on those parcels that are currently owned by the municipality that are up for sale. So, Tony, I'll turn it over to you, my friend.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, good evening, and thank you, Mayor Morrow and Council, for inviting me back for my second update status report on the status of property listings on Celine's industrial parks. In short, there hasn't been a lot of progress since my initial status report back in August of this past year. Just as a reminder, these properties were listed in June of 2013, and at that time they were published electronically over numerous websites, swishercommercial.com, CPIX, CoStar, LoopNet, which are all websites that give our property listings local, regional, national, international visibility. Some of the statistics in terms of the number of hits that those websites have had since their inception are summarized on the documents that are included as an attachment to the cover letter. There were 143 hits to the Celine 800 or 600 North Maple Road property. That property seems to be getting the most interest from inquiries, from curious onlookers, people who want to know more about it, what can it be used for, with kind of a diversity of ideas and opinions about maybe what they would like to do with the property. But really there continues to be just one, I suppose you would call it active lead, that City Manager Campbell has been working with to further develop that client's interest. I know that the city has invested in Phase 1, Phase 2, and a BEA environmental studies. And my understanding is from talking to the manager, city manager, that those discussions are still in process. Other than that one potentially interested client, there was really been no other active or aggressive type of interest expressed in that property. The Reddy's and Sheldon business parks totaled 126 hits over the past 9 months. The Salk Trail Business Park, 550 hits. The dedicated website that Swisher Commercial designed and published, www.salineland.com, has had a lot of hits, over 550 hits, or excuse me, over 776 views since its inception. Unfortunately, in spite of all of those hits, there really has been very little active follow-up or contact from interested parties reaching out to me or to anyone in our firm to inquire more about what those properties are about. I think that the graphs, there is some positive thing to come out of what we're seeing currently, that really in the last 90 days, really since the first of the year, we have started to see company-wide and I think industry-wide in Southeast Michigan here, an uptick in activity for commercial real estate. Still mostly in the retail sector, office sector is still soft. Vacant land, quite frankly, continues to lag behind, and other than residential development, vacant land for residential purposes, we really haven't seen much, or if any, type of interest in vacant land for industrial use. We think that it's probably out there on the horizon because most of the inventory that remains for industrial property or industrial buildings are aged. Most of the good deals are gone now. We have seen some companies start to think about growth, adding staff, contracts for more business that could eventually turn into need for additional space that could translate into potential for new development, but it's just not there yet. The mixed-use land is not one of the properties that has seen an uptick, but for instance, the Reddy Shelton business parks, you can see in the last, since January, there's been a pretty steep decline in terms of the amount of activity that we're seeing, people looking at, shopping, inquiring about what these properties are all about. So as I had indicated back in April, May, June, when we were first talking about listing these properties with Swisher Commercial, and I had indicated that, this is not a short-term project. It's something that primarily because of the economy, we just haven't seen a lot of interest in vacant land, particularly for industrial type use. Even the 3 lots along Michigan Avenue, which council has expressed a willingness to consider some alternative type use that may not necessarily be industrial. And there's been some conversations with some inquiries that that concept or that notion has been expressed or shared with. But again, it's we're not seeing any real large-scale development, particularly with those three, so 17 acres there along Michigan Avenue. You're really talking about roads and infrastructure and a pretty significant type of project and investment that would have to come forward to develop that property. So, you know, at this point, you know, it still is something that I think we need to continue to work on and leave it out there. It's something that you never know. It could be another 6 months, could be another 2 or 3 years until we see something happen. It could be the phone could ring tomorrow, and it could be somebody calling to inquire about any one of these properties. So with that, I'd be happy to open it up for any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Caparisi? Mr. Gearbaugh?
So how proactively are you actually going out seeking clients to potentially buy the property? Or
Yeah,
is this more just...
there's no proactive going out and seeking clients. You know, at Swisher Commercial, we really let our system work for us in terms of electronic mail or electronic listings, networking, and just being in the loop with whether it be Spark or the MEDC or just our general drive-by sign traffic. These type of properties in particular will get most interest from electronic inquiries. And certainly we don't lack in the traffic to our listing website. But you know, as we had talked about when we were first talking about listing these properties, I'd indicated that there would be no direct mailings, telephone campaigns of that sort unless it was something specifically requested by council and something that would be coordinated with perhaps staff, perhaps on a cost basis type of arrangement. But nothing has been done on that basis.
How often has Spark actually contacted you in the last 6 months?
Probably once.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Are there additional questions? No? Well, just a comment real quick, Tony. I have a potential lead. I got contacted on the Maple Road site, and I may facilitate an introduction between the lead and yourself, probably electronically.
Sure.
It's more of a commercial enterprise, which I actually think would be better suited for Michigan Ave, but
Sure.
just be expecting that.
Sure, and you had previously indicated that
Another
there
one.
was a potential interested party, and
Yeah.
I think that that's maybe still in the works. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Okay. I'll follow up with that
Okay,
gentleman as
good.
well.
Thanks.
Mr. Burgoyne?
Yeah, I was just looking at this. It's on CPIX and LoopNet and on-site signs. That covers a lot. I mean, it seems as though no matter who the broker, those would be avenues to get the contacts, either the signage or the normal routage. So,
Well, and that's right. You know, Swisher Commercial, we're really the only locally owned commercial real estate agent firm in Washtenaw County, but we just celebrated our 43rd year. And it used to be the bigger guys would come in and they supposedly had greater resources to market their properties. But, you know, in the last 10 years, we've invested significantly in our own technology. Technology's a lot cheaper. It's a lot easier to get our hands on. And, you know, we're out there in the same playing field playing with every other commercial brokerage firm that is there, whether it be locally or on the national stage. So we're confident that when the need arises, when there's going to be someone out there looking, that we're going to be on the list of potential sites. Once we identify who those individuals or those companies are, you know, again, I think Shearer Traer back in 2004-05 was a good example, and Councilmember Burgoyne was instrumental in really helping to, you know, we hooked them, and staff was really helpful in reeling them in and really showing them what the city was able to do in terms of making that a reality. So it'll be a team effort. Right now, we're out there trolling and looking for the right catch. So
Thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Have a good rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you.
If there's nothing further, we'll move on now to citizen comments on agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested, but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments? There are no citizen comments, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion. This time, I would seek a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. Please note that there have been several items removed, and then we added C-14-90, which is the approval of a proclamation designating, I think, the second week in May as National Police Week.
So move to approve as amended?
Thank you, Mr. Gearba. Is there a second?
Second,
Seconded by, is that Mayor Pro Tem Tahar?
yes.
Very good. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. Move on to public hearing. Item 14-78, this is special land use for 1259 Industrial Drive, and the applicant has requested that this item be removed, so it doesn't require any action. So we move on to old business, item 14-73. This is the social media policy that we discussed I think, in our last meeting, as a matter of fact. And this will be a motion to acknowledge the receipt of the April 2nd, 2014 memo from Technology Support Coordinator Schonk, and to approve or not to approve the social media policy as submitted.
Move to acknowledge receipt and approve.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Seibel Koenig. I don't believe that Mr. Schonk is here tonight, but Ms. Bennett, you're able to address any questions, concerns that council members may have? Okay. Are there any questions? Mr. Rhodes.
Not a question, just a comment. I see item number 11 has been added to take care of the one concern that I had raised earlier, so I think we're in good shape as far as I'm concerned.
Good. Well, we appreciate your comment 2 weeks ago. That was a good suggestion. Any additional comments? Well, actually, start with questions. No, if there are no further questions, are there additional comments? Ms. Tahar.
Just to say, I think with the improvement Mr. Rhodes noted, this is a good, clear, understandable policy, and I fully support it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Additional comments? I would just echo those made by Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Rhodes. Ms. Bennett, if you would please convey my appreciation to Technology Support Coordinator Schonk for his efforts. This is a very good policy and an important step in the right direction. If there are no further comments, it's been properly moved by Tahar, seconded by Seibel Koenig to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. I should note I made a mistake when Mr. Burgoyne and Councilmember Rhodes removed several items from the consent agenda to new business. Numerically, they belong at the beginning as opposed to in the middle, so we're going to take them up now. So Ms. Bennett, you may want to come forward. So this will be a series of motions. And again, it's from the consent agenda, item 13-184. And the first motion will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 16th, 2014 memo from Deputy Treasurer McDonough regarding the second amended FY14 recreation bond budget and the second amended FY14 recreation complex budget, and to approve and adopt the second amended FY14 budgets for recreation bond and recreation complex as submitted. Is there a motion?
So moved?
To approve and adopt, Mr. Gearbaugh?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Mr. Burgoyne, did you have a comment or question, sir?
No,
No? Okay.
not on this one.
Okay. Ms. Bennett, do you care to make any statement? It's pretty self-explanatory? Yep. No? Okay. Any additional comments? Okay. Easy enough. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to motion B. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 16th, 2014 memo from Deputy Treasurer McDonough regarding the second amended FY14 Fire Special Assessment Budget and the second amended FY14 Refuse Budget, the second amended FY14 SBA Municipal Building Budget, and the second amended FY14 Cemetery Fund Budget, and to approve and adopt these second amended FY14 budgets as submitted. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Rhodes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gearbaugh. Mr. Burgoyne, did you have a question on this one?
No.
No? Are there any additional questions? Assuming you have no comment, okay? If there are no additional questions or comments, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. Move on to motion C. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 16th, 2014 memo from Deputy Treasurer McDonough regarding the second amended FY14 sewer budget and the second amended FY14 water budget, and to approve and adopt the second amended FY14 budgets as submitted. Is there a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. To approve and adopt? Mr. Roth, to approve and adopt?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Ms. Seibel Koenig. Mr. Burgoyne, did you have a comment on this one?
Yes.
Please.
On the sewer budget, we applied for some grants that I think we are getting for the engineering or preparation part, and then we applied for additional funding, which we did not get at this time. Are there any changes due to what we did or did not get in the FY14 budget, or is that just in future budgets?
Future budgets.
Okay, good.
Is that all, Mr. Burgoyne?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Are there additional questions for city staff? And there are no further comments, I assume? No? Then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by Roth, seconded by Seibel Koenig to approve and adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to motion D. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 15th, 2014 memo from Deputy Treasurer McDonough regarding the second amended FY14 major streets budgets, the second amended FY14 local streets budgets, and the second amended FY14 municipal streets budget, and to approve and adopt the second amended FY14 budgets as submitted.
Move to approve and adopt.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Rhodes. Are there comments or questions? Mr. Burgoyne.
The Woodland Drive section that's covered by the FY13-14 budget, where did that start and stop? Where did the construction, maybe Jeff is here, he might better know.
What's covered in this FY14 budget, this
Right.
one here that you're amending, that started right at the,
Industrial to,
Okay, that's what I thought. So I still do not see that money coming from TIFA in this, so this has not yet been changed. And is this because the TIFA task force has not fully provided their feedback, and then maybe that discussion is still coming?
Correct. The TIFA task force met this last week. We didn't have a majority, but we had a good discussion about all the options and issues. But the majority of those members felt that what we had done was appropriate in terms of how it was allocated, so it didn't appear to be a change, but we didn't have a whole quorum there, so.
And also, Mr. Gearbow, you talked about this issue to some degree at the last EDC, TIFA, and LDFA regular meetings as well.
Correct. Yeah, and they were fine with what the approach would have been.
Correct. Additional comments or questions? No? Okay, then it's been properly moved by Tahar, seconded by Rhodes to approve and adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it.
Nay.
Nay, okay, thank you. Mr. Burgoyne? Clerk will know. 6 yeas and 1 nay. We move on to item E. This is a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 16th, 2014 memo from Deputy Treasurer McDonough regarding the second amended FY14 general fund budget, and to approve and adopt the second amended FY14 general budget as submitted. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Move to approve and adopt, Mr. Gearbow?
Correct.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. I believe it was Mr. Rhodes who had a question on this one.
Yes, I did, and it's relatively straightforward, I do believe. Last time we looked at this, I had asked a question about the $35,000 for the purchase of a police vehicle, as to whether or not we really needed to do that, and what it was to be used for. And I didn't
Yes.
receive any feedback yet.
if you'll notice, Joanne did provide on the very back sheet, she did provide you a list of how we reallocated those. We are, and Mr. Campbell, correct me if I'm wrong, but the purchase of a staff car for the police department has not been included in this FY14 budget, and I believe that the city manager and the city police chief have had conversation, and we're going to not pursue that purchase at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct. In non-technical terms, it's called horse trading, without trading anything. But just briefly, based in, and of course I was not here at the kickoff budget workshop, and through the discussion about utilizing the current Explorer, or more commonly known as the DARE vehicle. We had talked about that, and I think talking with Chief Rinnick, and he certainly is here, so he can, if I'm incorrect, he can correct me. But we talked about utilizing that as the staff car, and then trading actually his car, even though his car is newer than the staff car, which is utilized by the Detective Bureau. The chief's car is newer, but it has 20 or 30,000 more miles on it. It's the body's starting to give way, so we would switch vehicles and then eliminate the current chief's car and replace that with the current Detective Bureau's car, and then the DARE vehicle becomes the Detective Bureau's vehicle.
And then who gets the new car?
We will
Patrol car.
new patrol cruiser in our
It's a patrol cruiser.
correct, in our regular
Okay.
cycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Initially, at our work session last week, we had a patrol car for the police department and a staff car, and you inquired about the use of the DARE car, and that was the conversation. So that has been removed, and if you look at that last sheet of her memo, you'll see that out of that original 194.5 that we had allocated, that the Department of Public Works had allocated, there will be a remaining 27,500 not used this year.
So does that 35K include the build-out of the police vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add on to that per the, you may recall some discussion that the mayor inputted into a conversation a while back about promoting a four-wheel drive vehicle, and that's what this cruiser would be.
Okay.
And the new Tahoe is now pursuit rated. Four-wheel drive is now pursuit rated.
So you don't think my smart car would work?
Want to be driving in inclement weather when I'm pursuing a perp.
Community patrol.
Anything further, Mr. Rhodes?
That's it, thank you.
Mr. Gearbaugh?
Just
please.
making a clarification on this. So we're now going to buy 2 patrol cars in this fiscal year and nothing in FY15 based on this document?
Right, we've already purchased one patrol
Okay.
car in this year, and yes, we're going to purchase another one and use these funds
Got it. I
out
just
of the
wanted to verify.
FY14 budget, and there will be nothing for the FY15 for a patrol car.
Mr. Burgoyne?
One other item that was going to be included was $1,500 this year and $15,000 in FY15 towards Salt Springs. So I'm wondering where that $1,500 is.
Please.
That was not put in. That was, at least as I understood it, a suggestion, but not the majority of the council, so that was not put in. I have some concerns about that. But it's almost, to me, it's circumventing the budgeting process after the fact. So certainly, while it's very much appreciated, but I do have a concern to start that precedent by, if someone wants to donate and then after the fact wants to be reimbursed, while the city may or may not have those funds. So that's why it was not put in.
Additional comments or questions? No? Okay, then it's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by Tahar to approve and adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it, and the motion carries 6-1. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Bennett. Appreciate it. We move on now to new business item 14-83. This is Eagle Scout. Will Fleener, request to build dog park agility course. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 1st, 2014 memo from Parks and Rec Director Scruggs and to approve and adopt Will Fleener's Eagle Scout Troop 457 troop project to build a Mill Pond Dog Park agility course. Is there a motion?
Move to approve?
Thank you, Ms. Cybo Koenig. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gearbaugh. Okay, Ms. Scruggs, I will turn it over to you. If you'd like to, Ms. Scruggs, do you care to comment at all? Okay, here we go. Sorry, you were walking away from me, so
I was just making sure that Chase got the LCD player going. Yeah, I'm very excited to introduce Will
again.
Fleener to you.
Also moved this one, didn't you? Audie said that, but they didn't. You gotta bring it up, I'm okay. They moved it right down.
Oh, yes.
yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
This one, I think.
I'm here to introduce Will Fleener. He is an Eagle Scout candidate. He has made his presentation to the Park Commission on his project, which is he's proposing an agility course at Mill Pond Park, Dog Park. And I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to let him explain it, and he has some visuals for you as well.
So, hello everyone. Thank you for having me this night. My name is Will Fleener. I am a Life Scout at Troop 457, which meets every Monday at Liberty, sort of about this time. And so every Life Scout to attain the rank of Eagle has to complete a community service project. And my proposed one would be an agility course at the current Mill Pond Dog Park. So this is the current park. It's about an acre in area, and the far fence is 220 to 230 feet long. Currently is an open field with water access to the river, with no activities available to the dogs besides running around. So my proposed agility course would have 3 separate obstacles, each surrounded with pea gravel to firm the ground up so there would not be any mud or destruction on the ground there. As well, there is a vehicle access gate on the far wall. The obstacles will be placed so as not to hinder anything for that, so maintenance can come in and cut the grass. So the first proposed obstacle is the dog tunnel. It's going to be made of a corrugated drain pipe, plastic. The USDA regulation is 12 to 24 feet. However, I'll make it with 12 feet due to spacing, so we don't take up too much space. We leave some for the dogs. So back to materials, it's going to be made of wooden posts set with anchors 36 to 42 inches below the ground so as to get below the frost line. And of course, edged with leather so as to not hurt the dogs while they're on it. The second one is a dog walk ramp. So this, again, is going to be set with 4 wooden posts with cement anchors on each one. It's basically just, it's a ramp, little board the dogs can run off on. So lengthwise, it's going to be 12 feet. Width, it's about 1 foot. Again, spacing would be an issue, so I can't go the maximum length on that. And the final obstacle will be a hoop jump, which is basically a circular hoop the dogs will jump through. This will only have 2 wooden posts versus the 4 of the other ones, and it will be held up, a tire held up with rubberized chains so as to hold against the weather. So, of the entire project, I'll use non-toxic stain since there will be dogs there and it'll be accessible to children. So, in terms of building the actual project, it'd be carriage bolts, wood screws, possible elbow joints, depending on what we need to make that. And once again, the cement anchors we placed 36 to 42 inches below the ground, so they will not be thrown up when it frosts over. And it'll be about 1 foot tall each. And overall cost will be $475. I'm hoping to get enough donations so I won't actually have to fundraise. But if I do, it'll probably be a cannonball drive. Get money for that. So, open up any questions or comments you guys might have.
Mr. Burgoyne.
Could we see the location in Mill Pond again? Do you have that?
The proposed footprint?
And how does that location relate to things like the Celtic Festival or other things that use the park?
Well, this is actually set in the current fenced-in dog field they have at Mill Pond Park.
Oh,
And so, yeah, so it'd be, right now it's currently dedicated for a dog park.
okay.
And this would be just set against the back of that.
Please.
Also, the dog agility, are there contests for this? Is this like, you know, this disc golf contest, or this is for dogs, this dog agility contest or something?
Yeah, it is it's a national sport where people train their dogs to go and they compete in this. This would be a small, just a few of the obstacles that would be in a typical agility course.
It's like play equipment for dogs.
Yeah, and to train them, yeah, like horses or whatever.
Mr. Rhodes.
I think this is probably a good thing to do, and I'm sure some of the dog owners and the dogs will be happy with it. Just a couple comments. One is 42 inches is the minimum depth below grade to get below frost. And this last winter, frost actually went down to 48 to 50.
Yeah.
So I think you need to do more than those numbers that you had mentioned.
Okay.
And then there should be some drain holes in the bottom of the tire because rainwater will collect in there and we'll have bugs and whatever. And then my last is a question, who's going to maintain the pea gravel because there's going to be grass and weeds growing up in that?
Well, when the pea gravel was initially put down, there would be weed barriers put in place to
Put
hopefully.
a landscape fabric down below that?
Yeah. So it'd be, we'd take off the turf, pat down the ground, put some weed shields in there, and then put gravel on top of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Mr. Gearboss.
How long does the leather around the corrugated last? How long will that have to be replaced?
So before his dog gets hungry.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
Yeah, it's hard to say depending on how long it'll hold up, especially in the winter. I mean, it'll be good leather, good tough leather. That I would not know,
I
frankly.
didn't know if there was an alternative to it. That's my question, so.
I could probably find possibly a plastic alternative that would hold up a lot longer in the weather.
That might be
That would be definitely an
suggestion,
option.
if you can do that.
Additional questions? Will, thank you very much. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been properly moved by Cybo Koenig, seconded by Gearbock to approve. Is there any further discussion? No? Then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 14-84. This is the community events policy. I'm actually going to split this up into two motions, and then depending on the consensus of council this evening, the subsequent motion may or may not be needed. But the first motion that I'll entertain is a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 17th, 2014 memo from Clerk Royal.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gearboss. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Cybo Koenig. I'm going to turn it over to Clerk Royal if you'd like to speak to this for a moment, and then we'll entertain any questions, concerns people may have.
Well, if you remember, we went over and discussed community events, whether we were going to look at them each time that they came forward, or if we wanted to look at them, or if council wanted to look at them just one time a year. So the unanimous decision was to look at them once a year. I went and reviewed, basically it mirrors the city of Ann Arbor. This is where I got the idea for the once a year. And I brought this to City Manager Campbell, and I had it going with our fiscal year, but as he so wisely pointed out, it would be better to do it in October or look at it in September and then bring it to council in October, because most people run on a calendar year, although we don't. So my mind goes June to July or July to June, whichever. But this, and in September, October area it's kind of less activity. So it'd be a good time to review all of those and decide what would go forward for the next year and how council wanted to move forward.
There are questions for our city clerk? Is that Ms. Cybo Koenig?
Yeah.
Please.
Is there any mechanism for the development of a community event after the submission date? What would happen if we were to?
Yes, council can always approve that event.
Separately?
Yes.
Based on remaining funds?
Right.
Is that right?
Right, and since this is starting in October, or it would be a portion of the year, we would be able to include that into the next year. So this year, we're still going as we have done previously by event, but starting in September of this year, we would look for future events and plan for setting some aside, so to speak, and we would hope that other community events would become more self-sufficient, leaving more funds available for new events. That's our goal.
Is to Mrs. Cybo-Koenig's point, Clerk Rill, is that enumerated in the policy that things could be approved later?
Yes, I believe in 4.
Okay.
Or its fee waiver.
That it can go before council and request fees to be waived.
Okay. Ms. Tahar, and then we'll get Mr. Burgoyne in on this.
Yeah, well, yes, I had the same question, and I didn't see anywhere in the document specifically that we have the option for someone who has an idea for a new event, or a group that has an idea for a new event and would like to have fees waived, to come at any time other than September 1st. So maybe we could specify in something in item 2, new events.
Certainly.
Can be, I don't know exactly.
You'd make it
how
a
to say that.
subsection of 2, or you'd make it,
Just an additional sentence in
Okay.
number 2, indicating that there's the possibility of considering brand new events not tried before under the same fee waiving criteria. I don't.
Yep, I would be in
I don't
favor,
have wording
I
for
would
that,
be in
but-
favor of such language. It sounds like Ms.
Yes, I
Cybo-Koenig
would.
would be as well. Mr. Burgoyne, would you be comfortable with that?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Rhodes, yeah. Mr. Gearbox?
That's fine, as long as we consider that there's a budget of dollars that would be available, so the dollars may not be available.
Right. Subject to the availability of funds. Mr. Roth? Yes. Okay. So that's one section maybe.
Certainly.
Work on a little bit. I'm sorry, Mr. Tahar, did you have anything further?
No, that was it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Burgoyne?
I did not see the dollar amount, budget dollar amount in here anywhere. Also, under fee waivers, I did not see anything concerning the type of organization in terms of profit or nonprofit.
At the beginning, I had put nonprofit. Again, Ms. Jennifer.
Not sure where I see that.
Okay. Well, I can certainly add the nonprofit.
Because that consensus was actually developed at the work meeting, so.
Right. I thought I had added that, so I apologize. And the amounts, I have not fully gotten into place, but I thought that before September, we could have that in, so that we would know for the next year.
Mr. Burgoyne?
Yeah, I also have the concern about, I know that a few things happen year to year and so forth are pretty regular, but I think some of the community organizations are really dynamic and they don't really have it a year ahead that well. So I know that this might be administrative streamlining to some extent, and that's a good thing in general. But I'm looking from the point of view of community, organizations or things that, maybe even things that come up. And I'm some discomfort about this approach versus the approach we've always had.
Well, wouldn't Ms. Tahar's additional verbiage that she recommended just moments ago sort of alleviate some of those concerns?
Well,
That entities,
subject to some crumbs left over,
subject to funds being available, of course, but that they do have the right and are welcome to apply, beyond the timeline that's outlined in this document. Mr. Roth?
I'm thinking as far as how this is actually going to be implemented. They will make their request. Will the police chief and DPW come up with a cost for each event so we know what the real cost is going to be? Where does that come in on this?
That would come in during the work session meeting when council reviews all of the events that are being set before them, so that you could say that you have one item that has 5,000 worth of police services, and you can approve the whole 5,000, or you could approve 2,500. And you could say, we approve 5,000, but would like next year for this event to look for additional volunteers or other ways of reducing these funds, so that next year we can plan only to support 2,500, to give them at least a year warning to that the funds may be being reduced. At least that was the way that I had interpreted.
Okay, with that interpretation, would the police chief and the person for the DPW be able to include, when they estimate the dollar amount, whether it was included in their budget or not included in their budget?
Yes.
So I'd like to have that information available for us when we have such a work session.
Mr. Campbell, please.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, what I would add to that is it's very similar to what City Council does now on an individual event by event, but now it would be you'd accumulate all these applications at one time to review them, and staff would go through and do similar as they do now and look at cost and depending on what they're asking for, and we would determine that. We would, based on historical, we would put that in our budgets.
I'm asking for one additional bit of information, whether it's included in their budget or not included in their budget, because sometimes we just don't know for sure what's in the budget.
Sure, and that's my point. That the one little different here, a little tweak here, is that because you're doing it in a sense almost a year ahead of time, you're going to be splitting fiscal years. So so there's no perfect way to do it if you're going to combine it like this. So that would be what we would say is that's what we would propose to be putting in the budgets for anything that's going to happen July 1st or after, and that's next fiscal year. That's what, again, based on historical needs. Now, new ventures, if you will, new events, again, may need a little bit of extra explanation, so we can zero in on what their needs are, what the requests are, to help us come up with those proposed costs.
Additional comments? Mr. Burgoyne?
Well, I have a concern about not having budgeted amounts and approving things that far ahead of time, and not having the flexibility of organizations that may want to even change during the year or introduce something new. I don't see a big advantage for us doing it this way. I thought what we were going to do is look at number 4, which is for which organizations we will declare we will support with some public support and which not. I thought that's what we were going to do. And this all of a sudden became something else, and it even crosses budget boundaries. It's kind of uncomfortable.
So I'm very clear on what your perspective is, or what your opinion. So you would basically like a policy that's pretty much limited to point number 4.
Right, and then things come up as they do, and we put an ordinary amount in the budget, and then if something comes up that really has merit and we think we should spend another couple of thousand out of fund balance, then we do it at the time.
Okay.
And it gives more flexibility and more ability for the council members to do it at
Okay,
at
and
the
of course,
time.
contained within item 4, you wanted enumerated that it is a legitimate certified nonprofit.
That would be one of the desirables.
Okay, all right.
Mayor?
Mr. Gearbaugh?
The original idea, and the kind of the way I approached it, was that we would set up a budget dollar figure, like 32,000 or whatever, but we wouldn't, the entire 32,000 wouldn't be allocated out to the first individuals that showed up in October. We'd hold back a portion of those dollars that would then be used for any potential seed money to be used for any new events, whatever, and keep it maintained that way, so that we didn't exceed more than the $30,000 or so we've been expending the last few years, and keep it to that point. And then judge each event based upon an annual review to determine what the benefit of it was, how is it working for the organization, is it achieving goals? And that may mean some organizations may not get funded one year and some other new ones might get funded, but it's more of an overall approach, and we would look at all the costs, as Mr. Roth had said. But I think there was an approach to basically get an idea of, stuff gets stale, stuff gets new. It's just like any organization or any CARES millage or any of those. They look at what should be funded and what should continue to be funded and go that process. But I would like it all to be done at one point in time so we have everything there at once.
Okay.
And a year is not an unreasonable period of time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rhodes?
I'm basically in agreement with Councilmember Earlbach's comments. And since this is a policy statement, I don't think it's appropriate to have any kind of a budget number contained within the policy statement. That's something we should set each year as we look at our budgets. And I like the idea of being able to evaluate, if not all, at least the majority of our community-supported events at the same time. So if we need to make trade-offs, we have that information to do that. And if this policy is to be adopted, I would want to make sure that, particularly the very first time that it comes up, that we make personal contact with everybody that we know of who has done an event in the past and not rely on the FYI or the website or whatever.
Absolutely. Okay, very good. Mr. Har, you're in agreement with that?
Yes, I am.
Ms. Seibel-Koenig, you're in agreement with that? Okay. Mr. Roth, you're in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay. So do you feel like you have consensus?
Yes.
Okay. Got some verbiage and some things to tweak. And then maybe if you would let me know when you think you're prepared to bring it back for action, then we'll want to communicate with individuals and entities who constantly apply for some sort of city support. Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. If there's nothing further.
Do we vote on acknowledging receipt?
Yep, that's what I'm moving to right now. So I'm asking if there's anything further for our city clerk or staff related to this draft proposal. No? Okay, then it's been properly moved to acknowledge receipt by Gearbaugh, and it was seconded by Councilwoman Seibel-Koenig. If there's no additional discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. The clerk will work on this, and it'll come back hopefully in the next month or so. We move on to new business item 14-85. This is resolution number 1 regarding fire protection special assessment district. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 16th, 2014 memo from Treasurer Bennett, and to approve and adopt or not to adopt resolution number 2014-1, Special Assessment for Fire Protection 2014-2015, setting a public hearing for Monday, May 12th, 2014, to hear and consider any objections to the city's proposed share for fire protection in the amount of $342,991 for fiscal year 2013-2014.
Move to approve and adopt.
Thank you, Mr. Burgoyne. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, was that Mayor Pro Tem Tahar?
Yes.
Very good. Ms. Bennett, do you care to comment at all? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. Are there any questions, comments? Mr. Burgoyne?
A question. This is for FY15. Now, in FY16, will there still be any personal property taxation or no?
There will still, yes, the eligible manufacturing or whatever, that's going to phase out over years. So there will still be some personal property left. Well, then there will be commercial personal property left in FY16, but it starts fading out. The industrial starts fading out in 16, but there will be some base left.
Some existing, not new.
Correct.
Remember, too, it's somewhat contingent on how the vote goes in August.
Right, that has to pass.
Correct.
Right.
Additional questions, Mr. Burgoyne?
No.
No? Mr. Gearbaugh?
We don't have to include in this motion that we're not going to assess the special assessment?
In the resolution, the resolution
actual one.
states that, in the resolution that's attached to that, it does state that we will be using general fund dollars and that the special assessment is going to be
Okay,
levied
so-
at 0.
So it's in here and not necessarily in the motion. Got it. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. If there's nothing further, thank you, Ms. Bennett. No additional comments? Okay, then it's been properly moved by Burgoyne, seconded by Tahar to approve and adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to new business item 14-86, this is Oakwood Cemetery fence installation bid. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 15th, 2014 memo from City Superintendent Engineer Rubel and DPW Director Fordyce to approve or not to approve a fence installation contract from GFC Fence Company in the amount of $18,031 for the 2014 Oakwood Cemetery fence project. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gearbaugh. Gentlemen, either Mr. Fordyce and/or Mr. Rubel, do you care to make any comment?
The only comment here is that the award is recommended for an alternate bid that was provided. We asked for alternates. In some cases, contractors and vendors come up with another product or substitute that's acceptable. In this case, this vendor, GFC Fence, was able to do that. We thoroughly, checked it out with him. We even have a sample. If you want to see the sample of the material, I can pass it around. There were two prior fence projects you're aware of, the one on Monroe and Michigan in 2011, and then when we expanded the cemetery with the pre-needs vaults in 2012, we added similar fencing along the wall. And so this fence, even though it's 2 feet higher, doesn't need to be as durable as that, but as you can see, it's fairly durable, and it matches in style and color. The fence will be located as shown on the drawing, and it will greatly enhance the old section of the cemetery, which was the goal and objective of both City Council and the Cemetery Task Force. Right. So we're able to deliver the project within the budget that we had sort of foreseen for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Rubel. Are there any questions? Mr. Roth.
In installing the fence, it's going to be necessary to remove some trees. Where does that cost come in?
Well, DPW is going to do that. It's going to be force count. They're going to use their forces, go there and take the wild trees out, mostly overgrowth, some old fence in there, none of which is really usable. There may be only 1 or 2 trees that have any value whatsoever, but they're secondary growth that probably came up after that part of the cemetery was developed, just grew up because the fence was there.
So DPW is going to do the prep work. This
Correct.
company will install the fence.
Correct.
And furnish the fence for this price.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Gearbaugh.
So there's no legacy trees that are there that are in the fence row?
I don't believe it. I mean, Mr.
They're all
Fordyce
scrub
walked
trees?
it, and I believe, Lance Holland walked it also, and I believe Mr. Roth walked it. And so they're all familiar with what's there. I don't believe there's anything really of any value there.
Okay. Additional questions? Thank you, Mr. Rubel. Comments at all? Discussion? No, that's been properly moved by Rhodes, seconded by Gearbaugh to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 14-87. This is overbrand crack sealing, major and local streets. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 10th, 2014 memo from, Public Works Director Fordyce, and to award or not award the spring overbrand crack sealing project to Skolder Construction in the approximate amount of $42,000, and to authorize or not authorize Public Works Director Fordyce to execute acceptance of their proposal.
Move to award and authorize.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes, and seconded by Councilmember Roth.
Names there already.
Yeah.
How about that?
It's a good thing you did it.
Mr. Fordyce, do you care to comment at all?
I have no idea.
Thank you. One of our responses to the extreme winter, we just went through the major local street budgets and moved some of the money around so that we could put more funding into the crack sealing effort for this spring. We had an awful lot of frost on the ground this winter, which was previously mentioned during the Eagle Scout presentation, and a number of our pavements moved more than usual, and we suffered additional cracks. This technique is reasonably inexpensive, seals those cracks up prevents water from getting down into the base material and causing further heaving and freezing in the next cycle. So it's a good practice that we've been doing. It's basically a preventive maintenance, extends the life of existing pavements. And like I said, we moved some money around so we could do an extra large round this spring.
Thank you, Mr. Fordyce. This is an important initiative. Are there questions for our DPW director?
Linda?
Oh, Linda?
Yes, well, maybe, I'm not sure for whom this question is, but there's been some talk in Lansing about additional funds being made available for repairing winter damage. Is that something that we might see something of and could use for this project?
We received that money, right, Mickey Jo? Yeah, we received
already got it?
$33-something thousand already. That's not actually in the money that I moved around. That money I'm hoping to use more for paving repairs, areas that really blew up and need to be patched
Okay.
with asphalt. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
If I may clarify too, for the audience's benefit, Ms. Tahar, I think there are a lot of people who are getting two pots of money. They're confusing two pots of money. There has been money allocated to municipalities to deal with the adverse effects on roads because of this past winter. There's also additional money, and I think it was actually discussed in an article in I want to call it AnnArbor.com, but it's MLive, Ann Arbor News. This past weekend, there was a pot of money distributed a few months ago, and they're actually distributing some funds again. Those are not distributed based on the adverse impacts of this past winter. They're based on municipalities submitting shovel-ready projects that have already gone through the design phase. So just want to be clear that there are two pots of money, but they're for very different, distinct things.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Gearbox.
I'm just curious, some of the damage has been so different this year. I know we're going to be sealing cracks, but how do you handle that spalling where the like on South Ann Arbor Street, North Ann Arbor Street, it's not necessarily a pothole, but it's just kind of damaged to the point where it's just wore and it's not that old a pavement. Are we just going to let that go, or how do you fix something like that so it doesn't progressively get worse? Do you patch it with the...
We could do a skim patch there, or look at there are some products for streets that are kind of similar to driveway sealers, that same basic kind of thing. If I understand what you're talking about, it's like some of the stones have been kind of pulled out of the top of the asphalt.
Yeah, it looks like a pothole starting to form, and then eventually would progressively get worse, and I didn't know if there's treatment that we do for that, or we just let it go until it becomes a pothole.
If it's in a relatively confined space, we can do a small mill and pave in that area, because we'll have that equipment on hand shortly.
Okay, well, that's what I was hoping, that equipment coming on board would help for that. Cool, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbox. Are there additional comments or questions? Mr. Roth.
You indicate here you want approximately 30,000 pounds. How many did we purchase last year?
I think it was 21.
But they kept the same prices we've been getting since 2010, which is good.
Yes.
Thank you.
One more quick question.
Please, Mr.
Does this
Gearbox.
include the parking lots uptown at all, or not?
This is street money,
Just
so
only streets?
No.
Okay. I think we need to look into our parking lots some.
the parking lots need some investigation, yes.
Thank you.
Can you maybe address some of those issues at our upcoming work meeting where we'll have you talk about your budget? Okay. Maybe make note of that. It's a good point, Mr. Gearbox. Additional comments or questions? No? All right. Thank you, Mr. Fordyce. Appreciate it. If there's no subsequent discussion, it's been properly moved by Rhodes, seconded by Roth to award and to authorize. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to new business item 14-88, this is relief for sewer charges for 1235 Industrial Drive. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 17th, 2014 memo from City Treasurer Bennett and to approve or deny the request of Expert Property Management at 1235 Industrial Drive for relief of sewer charges in the amount of $682.59.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Tahar.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Burgoyne. Ms. Bennett, would you care to comment?
Sure.
I was contacted by the management company who said that during the winter months, they had not caught in a timely manner that they had a busted line. They did submit the photos and stuff that I have attached to that memo showing where there was a great deal of water leakage. Not to get, too detailed in here, but this is the meter. There was excessive consumption. It's a compound meter, and typically they never hit that high number, and there was excessive consumption on that number. So that kind of warranted to us that there was a need for a reread, and when we did the estimates on the bills this time, we decided that we weren't going to go out and do any rereads, but we did have this flag, so it was no surprise to us when they did send the letter in and they had documented that they did have this problem.
Very good. Any questions for our city treasurer? No? Okay. Discussion. Mr. Gearbaugh.
What did we do on the last one? Wasn't it because most of the water ran outside?
Yes.
And a similar type of situation with this?
Similar type of situation. There's evidence here that the water went up into the walls and was in the solution and vacuumed out by another company. The other one that you waived not too long ago was the water was in the front of the yard. You may also note that the management company is proposing, as is my memo, that they be based on their highest, that they based on the highest and not the average. So, on average is how we would typically do it. So.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Are there no additional comments or questions? Then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by Tahar, seconded by Burgoyne to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you.
We move on to new business item 14-89. This is the FY15 strategic plan. This will be a motion to acknowledge the April 3rd, 2014 memo, from City Manager Campbell, and to approve and adopt or not adopt the FY15 strategic plan as submitted.
Move to approve and adopt.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Gearbaugh. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Try to make this brief. This proposed draft for the fiscal year 15 strategic plan is a culmination of the strategic planning retreats that City Council conducted in November, December of 2013, and then reviewed by the department heads at the annual department head retreat to help come up with the key performance indicators, as well as which include success measures and then action steps, and again based on some of the comments provided by City Council. And so this is what we have that we came up with. So I'll do my best to answer any questions that I can.
Are there any questions? Mr. Burgoyne.
I am wondering where in here that the O and P are defined, definition for that, when people read this.
We can certainly add that to make a note.
I just didn't see it.
Sure, yep, nope, that's a good point, thank you.
Very good suggestion. We'll add that in without objection.
Correct.
Any additional comments, questions? No? Okay, well, appreciate staff's work in compiling and finalizing this document, but more importantly, thank you to everyone for council for your tangible contributions. I think it's a good document. And it has been properly moved then and seconded by Rhodes and Gearbaugh to approve and adopt the FY15 strategic plan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. I apologize, Mr. Burgoyne, you had asked that an item on the consent agenda, C-13-89, be removed, and numerically, I should have taken that up earlier with item 13-184, so that was my mistake, but we'll take it up now. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 16th, 2014 memo from Deputy Treasurer McDonough regarding the FY14 second amended TIFA budget, and to approve and adopt the FY14 second amended TIFA budget as submitted. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. To approve and adopt, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Rhodes. Mr. Burgoyne, did you have a comment or question?
Well, I think it was answered under major streets. TIFA is not, at this time, paying for that section of Woodland Drive in the industrial park. I would prefer that it come out of here rather than being coming out of tax-supported, general fund-related source, because I think that when these plans for industrial parks were set up, they were supposed to pay their way with the captured funds. So that, and I know it's still before the committee.
No, I just want to mention, when we were, actually, the thing I forgot about was when we were discussing with the attorney, our city attorney, the intent of TIFA funds were to help develop and promote new initiatives and new ideas that would generate more economic development and such. It never was intended to try and continue to maintain just our general roads and things like that. The idea was that it was supposed to be used to invest to hope potentially bring about new ideas. So when we were discussing with him, they were looking at that as being, that's really more the thing that we should be looking at, is really bringing about these new changes and ideas and not necessarily maintaining our roads, even though I know they're in the district and we do get a partial benefit from that. But the idea is we really are supposed to be focusing on our best return. And I think the idea too was also to look at the fact that if we're going to redevelop 147 or do something up that's in the TIFA district. There are some other items in there that potentially we need funds to help support that. And we may have to look at longer term items that would really benefit the city longer. And so this is one of the part of that. And the balance back and forth is to decide for us, where do we want to be at, where do we want to be, but also we want to make sure that we're fulfilling the intent of the TIFA arrangement so that we aren't challenged or anything in a legal arrangement.
I appreciate that, Mr. Gearbaugh, and I'll also note Mr. Gearbaugh is obviously a member of the TIFA LDFA task force and has been an active leader and participant and was at the last meeting. Well, I mean, it wasn't technically a meeting, but it was a good dialogue and discussion. And he's absolutely right that Roger Sweats, one of our legal counsel from Dickinson Wright, was there, who reminded us, and I had forgotten about this, but there is momentum at the moment, and hopefully it won't go anywhere before the end of this legislative session, to really substantially reform or do away with tax increment financing. And the main concern that's articulated by legislators who support that type of reform and initiative is that too often municipalities are using those funds for routine maintenance, things that could easily come out of their general operating budget. And to Mr. Gearbaugh's point, it's absolutely undeniable, in my opinion, that it should be used for innovative, unique, creative things to help foster economic development. Mr. Burgoyne.
Yes, that's absolutely right, that it should support economic development. But the economic development areas of the industrial parks are legitimate and cannot really be challenged legally of TIFA using money for the TIFA area where you're actually having industries and businesses and so forth. And you have additional land to grow there and so forth. So I don't think, I understand what you're saying about trying to use it most effectively. But on the other hand, on the legal challenge, I don't think there could be a legal challenge to using something in a TIFA economic growth area.
Do you care to comment at all?
I don't know if I want to add it or not, but I did want to point out that at the time that we decided to pursue the Woodland Drive project, when we were doing the Celine Stone Cliff and Celine River Drive project, we did allocate $33,500 out of the TIFA budget to go for that. And then with the board's consensus, and the board's thought that, the TIFA board, that we would reserve those funds for other things to have a fund balance and be able to bring forward new ideas, and other ideas were not only the 147, but wireless.
There are ideas coming forward about the fiber optics and potentially looking at that and how to do a professional study on that, because the more and more information we try to gather, the more and more there is out there, and so trying to figure that out. And so some of these bigger potential events may be on the horizon, and are going to be recommendations made to the TIFA board from the work task force.
So as staff, we are continuing to look at the projects, look at, if they're in the TIFA district, and then try to, allocate a portion of that, instead of the whole project, we try to allocate a portion of it so that they are paying, but not totally maintaining it. So.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
If I may,
Please.
this is just a piece of, I think, interesting information. You may recall that our city attorney, Scott Smith, served on the team to put together the corrective legislation for the PPT. He's also now been invited to serve on this team reference investigating the tax increment finance capture. So.
Good.
Okay, well, if there's nothing further then, there's a proper motion and a second to approve and adopt the FY14 second amended TIFA budgets as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. We move on to discussion items. First up is commission, committee, and task force reports. Mr. Rhodes.
The Environmental Commission met last week, and I'm pleased to report that they continue to be a very active commission. We will have another hazardous waste cleanup day from the county on September the 20th this fall. The last one went over so well that they decided to come back to us again. We also had a fair amount of discussion about how to increase the recycling efforts, correct recycling efforts at the various festivals and events that took place, and we're going to ramp up our efforts there to educate the public and help them to accept the fact that recycling is the appropriate thing to do and make it a little easier for them. And on the subject of recycling, we do, of course, this Saturday have our electronic waste recycle day here at City Hall. It's April 26th from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and co-sponsored by the Environmental Commission and the Fifth Corner. Proceeds from that go to support the Teen Center. And as I alluded earlier, the Environmental Commission is going to become even more active than they have in the past, and will probably be submitting a budget request for our next fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Are there additional commission, committee, or task force reports? One real quick on the substance abuse task force. The police chief and I had hoped to add an addendum to tonight's meeting asking for your support and approval to appoint various community members to the 3 subcommittees that my office in conjunction with the task force have established. They have a prevention subcommittee, a community resources subcommittee, and then a grants and funding subcommittee. We have a sufficient number of volunteers who have committed to serve on the prevention committee, though we would still like 3 or 4 more on each of the other 2, which again are the community resources and funding and grants. So if you know of some people who would be interested and involved, please encourage them to contact the 2 co-chairs at sataskforce@cityofceline.org. Again, that's SA for Substance Abuse Task Force at cityofceline.org. You may also reference or share with them the press release announcing the 3 subcommittees that I sent to you some time ago. But it's my hope to bring those names for your review and hopefully your approval at our next council meeting. Okay? Yep, we'll get to that in just a moment. Actually, you want to talk about that right now for Parks and Rec, or for Parks Commission?
I could.
Please.
The Parks Commission wants to invite everybody to the Arbor Day and tree planting ceremony on Friday, the 25th of April, from 1:15 to 2. It'll be at Canterbury Park, and everybody's welcome.
Terrific. Thank you, Ms. Seibel-Koenig. Any other commission, committee, or task force reports? No, then we move on to reports and other announcements. Why don't you come forward here, Ms. Scruggs? I want to plug this just one more time. I got this very attractive, well-designed, glossy mailer on Friday, encouraging me to attend a open house at the Celine Rec Center on Sunday, April 27th, which is this coming Sunday, from 1 to 4 p.m. I believe everybody, or most everyone in the Celine area school district would have received this?
That is correct. We have mailers going out. We split it into 2 different mailing groups, one on Thursday, one on Friday. So hopefully by now everyone has received their invitation to check out the rec.
Yeah, I also know that a number of these flyers were passed out at some of our local schools, which I think is great. As you know, because you all approved the changes, we had some really profound and I think ultimately beneficial policy changes that went into effect on January 1. However, the marketing campaign is just now being launched. And I especially want to note that in addition to new payment option, longer hours, more inclusive memberships, that for those who do not live in Pittsfield Township or the city of Celine, we're now offering the same discounted rate, which, as you correctly note on this flyer, is an approximate 20% savings, which is quite substantial. So I encourage my council colleagues and those in the audience and those who will be watching this meeting at home or reading about it to attend. Again, that's this Sunday, April 27th from 1 to 4 at the Rec Center. Come learn more about our Rec Center. I think you're going to like what you see, and hopefully you'll decide to join up. Do you want to plug this a little bit more?
I would love to have this opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I feel like we've been over this, but I do want to say this out loud. For anyone that has been maybe considering joining the Rec Center, this Sunday is the day that you should do this. Not only do you get the resident rates now that you live in the Saline School District, but we include many fitness classes as part of the membership. Childcare is included in the family memberships. Also, we're going to be giving a gift package. If you join as a family, you're going to get a family gift package. There will be included a nice workout towel, a refillable bottle that can be used at our bottle refilling stations, plus a lot of really neat extras as well. And couples membership gets a gift package, and also individual memberships get a gift package. So our values are, for a gift package, is actually better than a discounted rate. And in addition, if you sign up that day, we're going to have some special promotional offers on personal training. So if you would buy a package of personal training, you would get one added in. We have a kids fitness class we're offering a $10 discount on that if you register on Sunday. Private tennis lessons, buy 2, get 1 for free. Buy a session of swim lessons and get another session half off. And also, we're going to do a special, buy a t-shirt and get one at half off. So we're going to have some other special promotions that day. Also, just for coming in to get a tour and to look around, we have a special gift for that as well. Even if you don't buy a membership, you're going to get something. So 1 to 4, we're here to show everyone around, show them what we have. We have a lot of things to offer, a lot of new things, a lot of things that people don't know about, and we're really rolling this out, and we really want people to check out the Rec.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Griggs. Any questions? All right, hope to see you there between 1 and 4 Sunday.
Yes,
Very
thank you.
good. Okay. Are there any other reports and other announcements? Mr. Gearbaugh.
Is there a volunteer fair this weekend?
Yes, there is.
Go.
April 27th from 2 to 4 at Liberty School, there's going to be a volunteer fair. Everybody's invited.
So you can come to the Rec Center open house and then swing by the volunteer
Right.
fair. Excellent. Okay. Mr. Rhodes?
I was also going to comment about the volunteer
Please.
fair because I'm going to be staffing the environmental commission table, and I don't want to be there for 2 hours looking at myself. So we need people to come, and the Lions, I understand, are going to be serving ice cream.
Free ice.
Free ice cream.
Can't be free ice cream.
So you can eat some ice cream and then go to the rec center and work out, or vice versa. The other thing I wanted to do was to ask if we could get an update from the organization that's representing the Monroe Street property, similar to what we just got this evening at a future meeting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good suggestion. Okay, well, we move on to a correspondence then from American Tower Corporation. I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, you all recall, not too long ago, we had a work session on I believe it was 4 different offers to purchase if you will, purchase the current lease that the city has with American Tower for the cell tower site located at 600 Maple, the former service center site. And so certainly the direction was clearly, no, we don't, we want to maintain, the city wants to maintain that regular revenue stream. So this is American Tower, who we currently have the lease with, and so when I informed all of them, they said thank you very much, and then American Tower said, well, what if we maintain the agreement as is, and then except for extending the lease amount, currently is from 1996 through 2026, and so they're proposing to extend it, either 30 or 40-year lease extension, and you can see that the longer the extension, the larger the signing bonus. After talking with the mayor, wanted to just bring this to see if that was of any interest. Their goal is to have all their leases through to exceed 2050, the year 2050. So again, the terms will be the same as we get the rent check, but we also receive a third of all the co-locator rents as well.
Any questions for Mr. Campbell? Okay, so we're looking for consensus then on how best to move forward. Who wants to start this off? Mr. Gearbox.
So just a quick question, on the 5-year renewal terms, is that both parties agree to it, or is it just our?
That's what they were proposing to us, to the city, so that, I mean, they are in agreement, either option 1 or option 2.
Okay, but I mean, every 5 years, we're getting a proposal to us to say whether or not we both get the option of backing out of it?
Well, even in the current agreement, there is an escape clause, if you will.
Okay, that's what I wanted, just quick. I don't see a problem with either one. At least we've got a continuing revenue stream, and 40 years is just as good as 30.
Okay. So you lean a little bit more towards 40?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Rhodes?
I have not had a chance to go back and look at the existing lease with them, but they want this pretty badly, and it provides an opportunity, if we choose to, I think, to perhaps enhance the revenue sharing and escalations that are within that existing lease. So I'd like to hold off until I've had a chance at least to review that and maybe get a recommendation from staff.
Okay. Mr. Hart?
Yes, I'm in favor of extension and gathering more information.
Okay. Ms. Seibel-Koenig?
Also.
Mr. Burgoyne?
I'm not in favor of extension. They want this really badly, and in the future, they'll want it even more badly. I think we need to bargain at some point, and I don't think now is the right time to bargain. I think we need to let this run out until they see digital becoming more and more and more. They're probably right. We have an extremely valuable resource. I think we should keep it for the people and renegotiate when we're in a better, stronger position. We understand more. They understand more than we do right now. We're in a weak position because of that. I think we should wait and keep the resource for the community, not extend.
I didn't mean to pass you by, Mr. Burgoyne, Mr. Roth, excuse me, it's getting late. But why don't I comment since I have the floor? I actually completely agree with Mr. Burgoyne. I think it is appropriate and prudent to negotiate from a position of strength, and I don't think we are in that position at the moment. I think the demand and desire from this entity is only going to increase. And therefore, I think it would be more beneficial if we delayed action for some time. But obviously, we will abide by what the majority of council thinks and feels. Mr. Roth?
Well, hearing what I've just heard, I would have to say that we need more information like we had before. I don't know what's in the current contract. I'm not sure what the openers are with it, what kind of negotiations we have with the present contract. So I would just say we definitely need the information.
Okay. So can we maybe get some history on this contract, the existing contract, and then additionally maybe identify if there's some willingness or ability to negotiate?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly do that. I mean, as far as the other terms, and we're happy to provide all that. I mean, the terms are they're 5-year renewable terms all up through 2026 that are basically automatic unless at the end of the 5 years, unless one of the parties wants to discontinue, and it's also at a 4% escalator annual increase.
If you can provide that documentation.
Sure.
put it in their mailbox. That would be beneficial. Mr. Burgoyne?
Yeah, and also, I think we need to know the basis on which we can discontinue. Can we discontinue without any cause at all? I mean, that's extremely important. It's likely that there may not be as much wiggle room as discontinuing for no good reason.
Sure. We can confirm those details as well. Very good. You've got consensus then? Excellent. Okay. We move on to our last discussion item. Mr. Roth, I believe you added or would like to discuss an upcoming Centennial.
Yes, I would be. And it's not Centennial, it's Sesquicentennial.
Oh, I'm sorry.
150th year. 2016, which isn't very far away, is the city of Saline's recognition for being organized for 150 years. Back in 1966, they had a fantastic Centennial celebration where the whole community, the schools, the school kids were involved, all the service organizations were involved, all the merchants were involved. It was quite a fantastic event. We have several, which we're pleased of, people still living today that participated in that. So I'd like to see our seniors involved with such a thing, recreating a pride for our city, not just the downtown. So I think that this project should be something bigger than a Main Street project. I would hope that we get as many citizens and as many groups ready to rally for as representing our heritage, taking involvement in it as we possibly can. At that time, they had quite a committee set up for it, and they had a president, a treasury, and they sold stocks. So they had kind of an investment in, people bought an investment in it, and they got a return on their return on their investment was not so good. For $1 a share that they had, they got like 26 cents when it's all said and done. So they covered their expenses for putting on such an event as that. I think it's time that we need to start planning for it, working with Main Street. We may want to combine it with some other things instead of having too many activities in the year 2016 or the summer of, that we may want to combine it with probably the Summer Fest or something along those ideas, join forces and really come along with it. And our sister city is going to be celebrating its 50th anniversary with Brecon, Wales, where we're being involved with the same year. So I think we can combine many things and rally, get one of the best community support things that we possibly see on all levels. I'd like to see that investigated, see if we can go further with it, and it would not be just we as city council wanting to do such. We can be promoted citywide and see what kind of interest we would have.
Well, actually, I had dinner with Lance Hollins, who you know very well, last week, and we discussed a number of issues, but this topic occupied a bulk of our conversation. He's very aware, although he was not here and not present, as to how successful the Centennial celebration was in 1966. And is very much committed, and I think the Historic Society is very much committed to helping and assisting in creating an event or creating a year-long celebration to reflect back upon, to reflect on the fact that this community has existed and prospered for 150 years. I know that there was some commitment that was discussed to include Main Street, to include the Historic Society, to include the schools, the City of Celine, service clubs, and other interested parties. So I think an event planning group or committee is forthcoming, but your point is very well taken, and evidently 2016 will be here before you know it. So we do have to get the ball rolling on this initiative. Anything further on that point?
No, I just want to say we want to be able to like to see movement start.
Sure, absolutely. I forgot the chamber as well now that I'm looking at. Ms. Seibel Koenig, they would also be an entity that would need to be involved if the initiative were to be successful. So definitely would need to be a cooperative effort.
I would like to see that not the Historical Society run it, not the Main Street run it. I like to see it's community-driven, so some type of vehicle that it's not isolated to just one group.
Sure, and
It's
that's
going to include the chamber, the whole works. They had the churches involved. So I want to look at the entire community and get as many citizens involved as we possibly can, because that's where we're going to get the appreciation in the future from our younger kids and families, that let them know that they're part of this community instead of just sleeping here.
Absolutely. Okay, very good. Anything further? No, then we come to public comments. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. There are no citizen comments. Okay, our next meeting is on May the 12th. In your packet, you received a calendar with a tentative special work meeting scheduled for the 28th, which is a week from today. That will not be happening. We do not need a meeting. However, I do have a request. On May the 12th, we would like to have a work meeting to discuss the budget with three of our department heads, our police chief, our DPW, and our Parks and Rec director, because as you know, their portions of the budget take up a significant portion of our financial resources. However, in addition to having those 3 individuals present, I've been made aware of some efficiencies and some technology issues at the wastewater treatment plant. And I think it's appropriate that those matters be discussed sooner as opposed to later. So I would also like to bring in Bob Scull for that meeting, which brings me to the reason why I'm bringing this up. Considering the amount of items that need to be thoroughly discussed, I'm wondering if we could start the meeting a little bit earlier and start it at 5:30 as opposed to 6. Does that work for people or does that not work?
That work.
That does not work? Is 6 the earliest you can be here, Mr. Gearbaugh?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Roth?
Anytime?
Anytime. Mr. Rhodes?
I'm okay with 6.
Okay. Ms. Tahar?
I can do 5:30 if need be.
Okay. Ms. Cybo-Koenig?
6 would be my preference.
6 would be your preference? Okay. Mr. Burgoyne?
We can actually continue a work meeting after the regular meeting if
Sure.
there's some, half an hour left or whatever, so as not to displace the 7:30 start
Right.
too much.
Right. We'll plan to begin at 6. Please note that the clerk will be sending out an email regarding food. Know that the food is usually here before 6. So if you'd like to come at 1:45 or even 22, usually it's available. But we will begin very promptly then at 6 to fit in all of the items for discussion. And then if necessary, to Mr. Burgoyne's point, we could continue the work meeting at the conclusion of the regular meeting, or we could schedule an additional work meeting for the following Monday, or we could continue the discussion theoretically at our next meeting on May the 19th during the work meeting.
Mayor?
Yes.
When will we be discussing the building department and their budget?
Can we include that on the 12th, or would we need to wait till the subsequent meeting?
I don't want to cram it all in. I want to talk about that, so I don't want it to be a 5
Yeah,
minutes.
we could make it part of the 19th.
We'll plan on discussing on the 19th if you're amenable to that,
Yep.
Mr. Gearbaugh. Okay. Say again?
Well, I missed what he was asking.
Who wants to discuss the building and engineering department?
Okay.
I don't think we'll have room to have a thorough, thoughtful discussion on the 12th. So we'll plan to do it on the 19th. Okay. So again, we'll begin promptly then at 6 p.m. on the 12th. If there's nothing further, then the final motion this evening is to convene into closed session to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute, in particular discuss pending litigation. City Council will not reconvene into regular session at the conclusion of the closed session. Is there a motion to convene into closed session?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilmember Gearboss, seconded by Councilmember Burgoyne. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilmember Tahar?
Yes.
Councilmember Gerbach?
Yes.
Councilmember Cybo-Koenig?
Yes?
Councilmember Roth?
Yes.
Councilmember Burgoyne?
Yes.
Mayor Morrow?
Yes, so we are adjourned into closed session at 9:54 p.m.